Right, so we're now more than a month following the fall of the Assad regime, and for the people of Syria, it is no longer necessarily scenes of jubilation over the ending of a brutal regime that's on their minds, but now wondering if they have swapped one despotic government for another. But the prevailing thinking now is not about whether or not they'll get change. Certainly the HTS-led government are different from the Assad regime in some respects, but the price they will all end up paying for the kind of change they've ended up with. It isn't just the people of Syria wondering this either. From the outside, those who supported HTS in overthrowing Assad are also now wondering if what they've got is a net gain. Grave concerns over what they are seeing HTS doing, the government they are building, and what it consists of. Whether destabilising Syria was worth the price they could end up paying. But it's a bit late for that when HTS were themselves a terrorist organisation, and the guy now overseeing the change in Syria once had a $10 million bounty on his head, which can all now very conveniently swept away. All of this is the sort of stuff that should have been considered before, but as ever with Western interference in foreign lands, especially when it's the US, hindsight ends up being a wonderful thing. Right, so there are a multitude of different reasons to be concerned about what is going on in Syria at this moment in time, particularly if you're the US government, who seem to be in a bit of a flap about all of this. And all of these various whys and wherefores are rooted in interference by one faction or another, not just the US, numerous others as well, invasion by one nation on another, and given the collapse of the Assad regime was brought about largely by US design, certainly in support of Israel as well, the decision to do that and the consequences we're now seeing, well, they're panicking about it, they brought it on themselves. On one hand, and most importantly, is the impact being seen on the people of Syria, who are now rather concerned that the Al-Qaeda and Islamic State cast-offs that are Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, the new government regime in Syria by way of conquest, and led by Ahmed al-Shara, or al-Jalani as he's also known. Elections were meant to have come quickly, but these have now been delayed for 4 years. And this has given cause for a lot of concern amongst the Syrian people, since they and the rest of the world need only look at Idlib province, where HTS have been in control since 2015, to see what that might end up looking like, and what the US and Israel were prepared to unleash by doing a deal with terrorists to simply disrupt Iranian influence and do Israel a solid. Idlib has been described as a nucleus for all of Syria by al-Shara. So what has happened there may well be rolled out to some extent to the rest of Syria, if not completely. In Idlib, where women used to be able to reveal their hair freely, all the women must now wear head coverings. Many wear the niqab now. HTS fighters casually walk around with AK-47s in the streets, sporting black armbands upon which is displayed the Shahada, an Islamic testimony of faith. This was also seen displayed on a white flag being flown in Idlib recently, instead of the newly minted flag of Syria. And the flying of a white flag with the Shahada on it is something also seen in Afghanistan these days, under the rule of the Taliban, as they are there. Where people have celebrated the end of an oppressive Assad regime that indulged in disappearing people, torturing them to death and execution, HTS and Idlib have been little different to that. As far as religious denominations go, the Christians fled Idlib in 2015 when HTS and their allies in the Turkestan Islamic Party, Uzbeks and Uyghurs from China, took over. The local Druze inhabitants have also been persecuted. A notable massacre amongst their number in 2015 saw 20 people killed, all for the sake of one Druze inhabitant refusing to give up his home to an HTS commander. Sound familiar? No wonder they want to get along with Israel so much. There have also been reports this week of persecution of the Alawite population in Hama, a religious community being persecuted by HTS on the grounds that they are all seen as being pro-Assad, which is a very convenient excuse to scapegoat an entire community, isn't it? Isn't that the sort of stuff Assad used to do? The fear is this will be seen much more widely now HTS run the whole country, despite claims by al-Shara to the contrary. For example, Christians in Aleppo were allowed to celebrate Christmas without interference, despite the church grounds of St. Elia Maronite Church, where they went for worship, being guarded by HTS soldiers. Of significant concern to the US and other Western allied nations to Israel, having laid out this bit of groundwork now in this video as I have, is the fact that the new HTS administration have now taken some of these foreign fighters and placed them in positions of power within the Syrian government. The Cradle detailed some of these, an excerpt reading. According to Reuters, the United States, France and Germany have expressed serious concerns to Syria's new HTS-led government regarding the appointment of foreign fighters to senior military positions. US envoy Daniel Rubinstein addressed the issue directly with Syria's de facto leader, Ahmed al-Shara, Abu Mohammed al-Jolani, during a meeting at the presidential palace in Damascus. Similarly, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot and German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock raised these concerns in discussions with Shara on the 3rd of January. In late 2024, Syria's new administration made nearly 50 military appointments, including at least 6 foreign fighters from countries such as China, Turkey, Egypt and Jordan. Notable appointees included Abdulaziz Dawood Kudberdi, a Chinese Uyghur militant linked to the Turkestan Islamic Party, and Egyptian Ala Mohammed Abdelbaki, previously sentenced to life in prison in absentia in Egypt on terrorism charges. Syrian officials defend their decision, stating that many of these foreign fighters have been in the country for over a decade, contributing significantly to the fight against former President Bashar al-Assad, and cannot be returned to their home countries where they may face persecution. Well, God forbid they face persecution in their home countries while they're busy delivering persecution in yours, eh? As concerning as all this might be, though, Israel seems set on making matters even worse as all of this is going on, by having a completely different view of what they would like Syria to look like. Whilst the US will incessantly keep funding Israel, of course, they are very much remaining in Syria, unwanted there as they are by HTS, but not to the point they wish to go to war with them, because they still want to be besties with the Netanyahu regime. Israel wants Syria to be broken up into several independent, what they are calling cantons, essentially states, if you like, much in the way the former Yugoslavia was split up into the likes of Bosnia and Croatia, etc. Israel want to balkanize Syria, in effect, removing it as a single power and a single threat to them, whilst also in their minds making sure Iran can't ever support the likes of Hezbollah again, with a unified Syria that's going to be pro-Iran taken off the table for good, as they've been able to in the past, notwithstanding the fact a destabilised Syria, of course, has allegedly made it even easier for Iran to carry on helping out Hezbollah. Now, there is no reason for HTS to agree to that vision of Syria at all by Israel. They run everything now, don't they? But it could provide Israel with yet another excuse to stay in Syrian territory, which they say they plan on doing for the long term. So US-backed Israel and US-backed HTS potentially coming to a head there. Another fine mess to come in due course, it would appear. Further discontent has come with the foiling of an attack by ISIS on the Sayyida Zainab shrine in southern Damascus, a regular target for ISIS under the Assad regime as that has been. But given the HTS regime contains elements of ISIS itself, you'd have thought ISIS would pack this in with a more acceptable leadership now in charge, wouldn't you? But it seems they might not be as tight as we might have assumed they were. And this then casts another light and another headache on the US as Turkey continues to attack their Kurdish allies in the north, an area where the Kurds guard the detention camps and prisons of thousands of ISIS fighters. It might have been an easy assumption to make that if these ISIS fighters escape, they might join HTS. But actually it seems it's just as likely they take up arms against them as well and destabilise Syria even further should they be released. And that presents a headache particularly for us here in the UK, as amongst those prisoners in the north of Syria is a certain Shamima Begum. Being set free will beg questions again of whether she should have been brought back here to face justice, where she could have been securely locked up, if that is the decision that ended up being made. The Syrian Democratic Forces, the Kurdish-led US allies, have in response to all of this, asked the US to ensure that upon Trump coming to power, that they won't withdraw their forces from Syria. Should they do so, those ISIS captives will almost certainly end up being freed. Turkey being hell-bent on defeating the Kurds no matter what. And actually this has had me asking questions regarding US-Turkish relations, because like us here in the UK, both Turkey and the US are manufacturers of parts for those blasted F-35 jets that Israel have, and are committing so much damage with. Yet surely they must be butting heads over this northern Syria situation. Or is it going to be a case of the US drop the Kurds right in it for the sake of both them and Turkey being on the side of HTS? It's a situation it's not particularly clear to see how that will turn out, especially when another angle to US supports for the Kurds is that between them they control the majority of Syria's oil fields. All in all, the Syrian people seem to be the ones set to suffer most of all. They've swapped one regime for another, and depending on religion and whether and where in Syria they are, will depend how they get treated. Democracy seems a pipe dream with HTS bedding in for the next 4 years, and with conflict all around them from US interests, Israel, Turkey and ISIS. It's no wonder the Syrian people, much like foreign governments witnessing the mess their own interference seems to have wrought, are wondering if things are just as bad, if not worse, than they were before, and could worsen still before things have a chance of ever getting better. What direction of travel do you think events are going to take here? Do let me know in the comments. Elsewhere, meanwhile, Israel's ever-growing headache in Gaza, the revived Hamas, have managed a level of escalation in the last few days that has just floored Netanyahu and co. The IDF's incompetence writ large, frankly, as it appears, most cack-handed army in the world as they are, leading to daily rocket attacks from Hamas as if Israel had not committed the razing and genocide of the Gaza Strip at all, and they don't seem to have a Scooby about how to deal with it. Get all the details of what appears to be an ever-growing failure by Israel in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't already so as to make sure you don't miss out on new daily content, and it all helps to support the channel as well, which is very much appreciated. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.